Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater's Soundcheck. This time out, a versatile audio hub for your recording studio. Let's get started. I've been using the Dangerous Music D-Box in my rig for a lot of years. I really enjoy the box because it does so much for my studio, provides so much versatility, and it sounds great. But now with the D-Box Plus, Dangerous Music has taken things to an entirely new level. Dangerous Music didn't just come out with a cosmetic upgrade, they really rethought this entire product all the way from the ground up. They've increased the audio specs, they've added a ton of new features, it's very easy to operate. Let's take a tour and see what it can do for your studio. Dangerous Music is well known for two of their products, the Monitor ST, which is their monitor and control solution, and the 2-Bus Plus, which is a summing mixer. We have many of the features of those two products combined here into the D-Box Plus, which gives it incredible versatility as well as outstanding sound quality. So we have a built-in 8-channel summing mixer here. We also have complete control room functionality in the control room and speaker switching selection here. With a combination of summing and monitoring built right into the D-Box Plus, we have a lot of versatility. Taking a closer look at the summing mixer, as I mentioned, we have 8 inputs, and those are arranged as 4 stereo pairs. By hitting the mono switch here on the front panel, we can change inputs 7 and 8 to mono inputs, which are center panned, and this is great for kick drum, snare drum, or bass guitar. We also have a level trim for the summing mixer, unity gain when it's turned all the way up, or we can drop this down to minus infinity, and this allows us to balance that output very effectively. The summing mixer can be monitored as a source in the control room outputs or the headphone outputs, or it has its own stereo output on the back panel as well. But in fact, you can combine together other inputs along with the summing mixer to give you a total of 16 inputs at mixdown if you like. Moving on to the monitor control features, we have 2 different sections here, control room and headphones, and one of the big upgrades in the D-Box Plus is that we now have separate control over the input source for each of those. We have 5 different sources we can monitor out of our control room section. So we can choose analog, which is the stereo analog input on the back panel. We can monitor the stereo output from our summing mixer. New to the D-Box Plus is the ability to monitor Bluetooth audio, which can come from an iPhone, an iPad, or another mobile device. We also have a USB jack on the back of the D-Box Plus. We monitor that here, and it can accept audio input from a computer, either a Mac or a PC. And finally, we have an XLR input on the back for AES or SPDIF. It'll accept both formats with the proper cable. One of the great new features with the D-Box Plus is something they call moment toggle. This allows us to use the switches in 2 different ways. So we can select a switch by simply pressing it to change our inputs, for example. But if you press and hold, you'll momentarily switch to that input and then revert back to the one that was selected before. And this works with most of the features on the front panel. It's a great way to jump back and forth between 2 different sources without actually toggling them. Whatever source we have selected in the control room section here can feed 2 different outputs simultaneously. The first of those is our headphone output here, which has its own volume control. The second is our set of speaker outputs here. We can connect up to 3 different sets of stereo monitors here and switch among them using the switches. And remember, we can use that moment toggle feature to press and hold to quickly jump between 2 different sets. We can also dedicate the third set of outputs to a subwoofer output. Now this can be used independently, so for example we could turn that on and off when we're listening to one of the other stereo pairs, or you can set it to track whichever of the stereo pairs you have selected. So for example, you could have the subwoofer automatically come on when you select set 1 and use no subwoofer when you switch to set 2. We can also switch our outputs to mono, which allows us to check for phase incompatibilities and so on. We have a second headphone output on the D-Box Plus, here on my far right, with its own volume control. This is labeled phones and typically would be used to feed to your artists as they're monitoring their recordings. So we can switch among the same 5 sources as the control room, but they're independently selectable. So we can choose analog, summing output, Bluetooth, USB, and AES SPDIF. One of the other features of the D-Box Plus is we can actually select more than one of these at the same time. So for example, I've got the headphones output set, so we could layer together up to 5 of our inputs. This allows us to do a lot of things while we're working in the studio. For example, you could be playing a YouTube track in via USB from your computer and play along with it using the analog input. You can also use it for quickly referencing tracks. You might have noticed that I have things set differently for the headphone section and the control room section. Here we're set up to where it's additive, and here we're switching. This is easily set up in setup mode from the front panel or using the app over Bluetooth. In addition to the front panel headphones jacks, we have a corresponding pair of headphone jacks on the back panel. This allows you to hook up more than one set of headphones, and in fact, the headphone amplifiers inside the D-Box Plus are powerful enough to drive multiple sets of phones down to 4 ohms of impedance. Speaking of the headphone outputs, we have a built-in Talkback microphone in the D-Box Plus. You can engage that using the switch here, and it has its own volume control. When you're using a control app over Bluetooth, you can actually use the microphone that's built into your device. You set that up inside the app, but in that case, when you select Talkback, you're using the microphone inside your device. This allows you to control the D-Box completely remotely. You could be sitting in the back of the room, in another room completely, and still accessing Talkback. But we're not done yet. We still have more features with the D-Box Plus. We have a stereo line output, and that can duplicate what's coming out of the headphone output or what's coming out of the control room output, and you switch that here. This allows you to make dubs or to run things back into your DAW when you're mixing. Even the volume control has additional features. Of course, you can turn it up and down here, but if you press once, you'll dim the monitors, and you can set that amount very easily inside the box or using the app. If you press twice, you'll jump to a reference level. So you can preset this to, say, 85 dB for checking your mixes at a particular volume level. I've mentioned Bluetooth and apps several times, and there are two ways we can use Bluetooth with the D-Box Plus. First of all, we can play audio back from a device such as an iPad or an iPhone. But we can also use Bluetooth to control all the functions inside the D-Box Plus using an app, which I have running here on my iPad. So you can see that as we turn things up and down, the volume control changes. We can access our different inputs, outputs, speakers, and so on. We can also use the app to set up many of the features inside the D-Box Plus to operate the way that we want them to. You can also control the D-Box Plus using an app for your Mac or PC via the USB connection. But of course, none of this would matter if the D-Box Plus didn't sound incredible. Its specs are absolutely phenomenal. For example, we have less than 114 dB of crosstalk between the inputs and the summing mixer. Really stunning specs, and that continues throughout all of the D-Box Plus's functions. But the sound quality is what really matters, and it sounds absolutely stellar, which means that it really doesn't sound like anything at all. It's completely transparent. Dangerous Music is well known for the quality of their clocking, as well as their digital analog converters, and both of those are readily apparent inside the Dangerous Music D-Box Plus. It's an incredible box. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the Dangerous Music D-Box Plus. If you're looking for a solution that can serve as a complete central hub for your recording studio, this is one you definitely want to check out. Thanks for joining me for Sweetwater Soundcheck. I'm Mitch Gallagher.